research universities have very similar approaches to what they by default offer sponsors, right? Sponsors of research. You have federal funds coming in. That's a given. Bayh-Dole applies, and in almost all cases, the government gets the rights they get because they funded it. So usually when we're talking about intellectual property rights, we're talking non-federal sponsors, because that's where there's negotiation involved. Universities have a tendency to offer a sponsor, especially particularly corporate sponsors, the first right to an option, not an actual upfront license, but the first right to an option to negotiate for a non-exclusive license. And your research agreement, your standard sponsored research terms will dictate kind of what your default position is and where you're comfortable starting. Now, I know that when I worked at the University of California, very large institution with one IP policy across all 10 campuses, they wanted a very cookie cutter approach to sponsored research agreements and not to negotiate agreement by agreement, because there were so many faculty and so many agreements and so few licensing associates that there was no way they could do a per agreement negotiation. It just wasn't physically possible, let alone manage all those one-off agreements. Caltech takes a completely different approach. Because we only have 300 faculty, I mean, and it hasn't grown since I've been here. We still have about 300 faculty. Caltech has no mandate to grow. So our student body isn't larger, our faculty population isn't larger. So the technology transfer office at Caltech is able to customize and negotiate because they're also have committed to managing those one-off agreements. So when we have corporate partnerships, we're often agreeing to things that other universities might find uncomfortable, because we're willing to look at every situation, the background IP, the portfolio for a particular situation, whereas most universities have too much volume to be able to do that. And so right there is an example of an institution's situation can change what they're able and willing to do with regard to what they can offer and negotiate in intellectual property. I don't know.